Welcome to part 3 of the Balanced Pocket Budget Workbook. In this video, we're going to go over all of the monthly section worksheets in detail. Let's get started. The first page within each month is going to be the calendar page. So I left the calendar dates, the monthly dates blank so that you can use this budgeting workbook for any year. So first thing you'll want to do within the calendar is to fill out the dates, so according to whatever year you're doing the budget for. And then I like to write down when any bills are due, and then also if we have any events coming up, so if there are any birthdays or if we have any plans, because that's going to tie in with the budget for the month. The second page is going to be our monthly to-do worksheet. So the top half is things that you need to do at the beginning of the month, and then the bottom half is things that you need to do at the end of the month. So you'll just want to fill out each section, so any bills that are due. And then anytime you complete one of the tasks that you have filled in, you'll want to highlight it to say that it is done. So if you have paid your internet bill, then you'll highlight that row, and that means that that has been paid. There are also sections for transfers. So for example, at the beginning of the month, I will want to transfer my sinking funds from my checking account to my savings account, and then I put how much. So when you finish that, you'll also want to highlight it. So I actually end up highlighting the whole thing. And then there is a section for cash envelopes, so when you withdraw cash for your envelope. And then there's a section for any notes you need to make for this month. At the end of the month, it's going to be very similar. So any transfers you need to make, so like if you need to pay debt, and then of course highlight it when it's done. For this section, so fill out all income and expense transactions for the month. So that's going to be these expense tracker sheets. So finish writing down anytime you've spent money or made money. So you complete all these expense tracker sheets, and then when that is all done, then you'll highlight this to say, okay, that's done. For filling out totals in the year overview page, so that is going to be at the front of the binder. So remember this year overview page. So you'll want to go to your completed budget overview page. So from here, and then put those totals into this year overview page at the front of the binder for that month. So when you have finished doing that, then you'll highlight this. And then for this section, so total saved. So how much did you save by budgeting? So like if we look at our budget overview page, did we save any extra amount from our budget? So you can put that total here. So it just helps you to visualize how the budgeting system is working for you. And then there's also a section on the bottom here for notes and calculations. And I usually like to also use the back of this page if I need to do calculations. So if it can't fit within the section, I tend to use the back of these worksheets. This page is going to be for our sinking funds and for our cash envelopes. So for sinking funds, that's usually if you need to create any kind of like a saving system for any large bills that you know are going to be due for the year. So for example, like you'll know that your car registration is due once a year. So here you'll list all of those sinking funds that you want to set up, and then what is the beginning balance for each one of them at the beginning of the month. And then also how much are you planning to put into that sinking fund this month. So these are kind of like your tiny savings accounts, but instead of opening a saving account for each of these in your at a bank, you're just keeping track of all of these on your own. So for us, like we'll have our savings account that's designated just for these sinking funds. So our emergency fund and then also the sinking funds, we keep those in a designated savings account. So like I said, you'll put your beginning balance and then how much you're budgeting to add for each sinking fund for this month. Then at the end of the month, you can fill out this column. So how much have you spent towards any of these sinking funds? So in this example, we haven't spent any for the first few, but we did spend $100 on gifts. And then at the end of the month, you'll do your calculations. So it'll be what your beginning balance is plus how much you have added for the month minus any amount that you have spent is going to be your ending balance. So then for the next month, this ending balance will actually be your beginning balance. So like for, right now we're in May, for June, this is going to be your beginning balance. Then you'll want to fill out your totals down here. So you'll add up all of the columns and put in this total section. For me, I like to know how much of my savings account is my sinking funds and then how much my total savings account should be. That's because we keep our emergency fund and our sinking funds together in one savings account. So this might apply to you, it might not. You might want to figure out a different way to do these calculations, so it's totally flexible, totally up to you. The way that I do it is, so my emergency fund and savings account interest, those pretty much stay pretty consistent from month to month. And then the sinking funds are the ones that change, right? So I usually just draw a line to separate them. For this box, the sinking funds plus emergency funds, it's going to be, so what your beginning balance total is plus how much you have added. So I like to know at the beginning of the month how much I should have in my savings account after I transfer in the totals for my sinking funds. And then I also like to know how much like of that savings account is just my sinking funds, because up here it's pretty clear. I can see how much of it is my emergency fund. But for this box, I end up adding up just the beginning balance and amount added for my sinking funds and put that in this box here. For the cash envelope section, so if you withdraw any cash, so some people like to pay for any variable expenses out of cash. We mostly pay with credit cards, which we do pay off at the end of every month. But we do like to withdraw cash for some categories too. So for example, farmers market is a big one because it is usually like cash only. So we withdraw cash for farmers market and we keep it separate. So fill out any categories that you want to withdraw cash for, how much you're planning to withdraw, add those up and then put the total here. And then I also like to break it down. So if I'm withdrawing $40 for farmers market, I want to know, I want to plan which bills I want to withdraw from the ATM for this cash envelope. So maybe I want one $20 bill, one $10 bill, and two $5 bills. And then once you have all that filled out, you'll want to add these up and put the total number of bills in these boxes down here, so that when you do go to the ATM, you'll know how much of each bills you want, and then it will correspond to your cash envelopes. For the bottom section down here, total sinking plus cash funds, so this is going to be the D, so how much you're adding to sinking funds for this month. So it's actually going to include if you're adding to an emergency fund and if you're including to sinking funds. So it's going to be this value D here. And then it's also going to be this value E, 140. So I just like to know how much we are setting aside for sinking funds and for cash envelopes for the month. So I like to have it written down here. So now we come to the budget overview page. So here you're going to list all of your income sources, all of your fixed expenses, all of your variable expenses, any debt that you have, or any savings that you're planning for. So for example, in the income, you'll list any paychecks. I like to have this other category because sometimes, like, if I get a gift or an unexpected check in the mail, or I return something, I can put that here. So at the beginning of the month, you're going to fill out all of the budget columns for each of these. And then at the end of the month, you're going to fill out the actual values. So sometimes it will stay the same. Like for example, for the fixed expenses, it usually will stay the same, right? But sometimes, like with your paychecks or with variable expenses, what you budget is going to be different from what the actual value is at the end of the month. And then you'll just want to add up the columns and put it into the total boxes. So for fixed expenses, this is going to be stuff that the amount does not change month to month. So like for example, your mortgage, it's usually a fixed amount, so like $2,100, and it should stay pretty constant, right? So like you wouldn't really expect to budget for $2,100 and pay something different from $2,100. So that's what your fixed expenses are. Your variable expenses are going to be things that you have more control over. So for example, grocery shopping. So you can budget for $400, but you're going to need to be like disciplined and plan so you can stick to that $400 budget. So in this section, the actual values are going to fluctuate the most out of all of these categories. And then in this section down here, you're going to list so all your debt or savings. So like if you have any credit card debt, or if you're saving for something, so maybe you're saving for a house down payment. So let's say maybe your credit card bill, you owe $500 every month. But at the end of the month, after you've done all your budgeting, maybe you have some extra money left over and you can put more money towards that credit card debt than you actually planned. So that's what this column is for. And then of course, for all of these categories, you'll want to add up the columns and put the amounts into the boxes there. For this bottom section down here, this is just going to be like a checks and balance thing to make sure that what your income is going to equal what your expenses are. So I like to do a $0 based balance. So the difference after your budgeting should equal 0. So you'll want to take what the total is for your income budget, write it down here, and then for the total of your expenses, it's going to be your total fixed expenses, your total debt and saving budget, and then your total variable expenses. So that value will go in here. So when you subtract these two, it should equal to 0. If it's not equaling to 0, then that means that these values don't add up. So you're off somewhere. And then at the end of the month, you will do the same thing for your actual budget. So what was your total actual income? So you'll put that here, and then your total actual expenses. So it's going to be this total actual, and total actual. So you'll put that there and then subtract the two, and it should equal to 0. Finally, at the end of each month, we have our expense trackers. So you have several sheets of expense trackers. So like full page, split into 2, and then split into 3. So I like to group my expense categories, so that's coming from all of these labels here. So for example, on one sheet you might be looking at groceries, restaurants, and pets, so you'll list those there. And then I also like to list my budget for each, so that I don't have to keep flipping back to my budget overview page. So write your categories up here on the lines provided, and then also assign a highlighter color to each category. So I like the highlighter method for budgeting. This is what works for me. It's very visual. And then down here, so anytime you spend money or you receive money, you're going to want to write it on one of these lines. So put the date, the category that expense corresponds to. So like this one is groceries. Write any notes about the transaction, so maybe the store name or like what you bought. So you'll write that there. And then withdrawal, that means that you spent money, or deposit means that you received money into that category. So like if I went grocery shopping, I spent $53.67. Then for the ending balance, I'm going to take my budget for groceries, so $400, minus whatever I spent, and that's my new balance for that groceries category. And you see, I did end up highlighting this blue because my groceries budget is, the color is blue. Then I wanted to show you this example for pets. So on May 12th, I spent money on treats, so $12.06. So I took this $50 that I budgeted for pets, I subtracted $12.06, and then my ending balance is $37.94. And then the next day, let's say I went to return something that I bought for a pet, I would put that return in this deposit column. So I returned a toy for $17.12. Now I'm going to take my ending balance for that category, which is now $37.94 because I've already used this category. And instead of subtracting from this, I didn't spend anything, so I wouldn't subtract. I returned something, so I received money. So I'm going to take $37.94 plus $17.12. So now my new balance for the pets category is $55.06. So you're going to keep doing this for the whole month. So you're going to have a bunch of these filled out, right? So usually these smaller sections, I'll use this for like a mortgage or like something for my car, something that I won't have too many things that I'll have to write. When you finish filling out all of the transactions for the month, you're gonna have all these values for your ending balances for each category. So that's going to be helpful for you when you go to this budget overview page. You're gonna have all that data to be able to fill out your actual spending and income for each of the categories. And I did want to show you an example of one of my sheets from last year. So this is an older format, but you can see that there's going to be a lot of transactions, and then the colors will match up to the categories up here. So when you have a lot of transactions like this, the colors become really useful because then you can know exactly which category that's for. Thank you for watching part 3. If you don't already have the Balanced Pocket Budget Workbook, you can download it on balancedpocket.com.